I was exactly the same. Played in the hockey club, probably a stupid thing to do, but that's what I did. And I was the same as them. Those verses in 1 Peter 4, they wouldn't have applied at all, because everyone would have looked at me and just said, they're the same person. They're exactly the same person as me. And I kept on coming back to church and thinking, I'm that chicken with that chain pulled off me. And for some reason I'm not walking away. And I tried and tried, and no exaggeration, I tried as hard as I possibly could just to walk away. Every week, every Monday morning after church, I'd wake up and say, this week is going to be different. This week you're not going to go out. This week you're not going to do this. And you know what? I couldn't do it. I couldn't get away. And the reality was, I wasn't saved. That chain hadn't even been pulled off. My reality was walking around and round and round in circles because there was a chain on me and because I couldn't get free. It wasn't because there was anything wrong with me in that sense that I was a bad Christian or a wrong Christian. I wasn't even a Christian at all. I had a chain and I couldn't get out. I was saved in my third year, university. I was sitting right there on that pew. I remember the day vividly. I don't remember the date, but I remember the time exactly. It was a year later that God showed me, actually, God revealed the whole thing to me over my past, my life, and the stuff that I've been doing, and the pretending, and the fact that I hadn't been real at all. I was saved. And you know what? Within a short time, you could tell that chain was off. I didn't change overnight and become perfect. I didn't just stop the drinking and stop and the swearing stopped right like that, actually. But some stuff didn't stop. Over the next few months, that chain had been pulled off and I was able to walk away. And you know what? That illustration and that message and that truth is the same today as it was back then. It's always going to be the same. As a Christian, you're set free to walk away. And you can. And I know from my own experience, sometimes we can be walking around and around in circles. Sometimes it's because people haven't even come through and have that chain pulled off. But you know what? If you have, and when you have, as someone who's been born again, you can just walk away. You can just say no. And you know what? That is important. That's so important. You know what? One of my excuses for going down the pub when I was in university was that I was doing evangelism. I look back and I'm like, what? That is so stupid. Ridiculous. Especially what I was doing. Especially how much I was drinking. Because, even if, and it didn't happen very often, I think it did happen a couple of times, but even if you get home and you start having like a deep spiritual conversation, I had some housemates that loved them anyway, nothing to do with Christianity, but you get back and you do have this deep spiritual conversation. What are they going to get from someone who's doing exactly the same stuff as them and is telling them this message? It isn't going to add up. It doesn't add up. Your life needs to add up to what you're telling them. And you don't have to stand there and say, I'm perfect. Jesus changed me. I don't do anything wrong anymore, because that's not true, is it? It's not true ever till we get to glory. But your message has to match your life. Otherwise, people are just going to look at you and go, no. Why should I believe that? Either that, or they'll say, right, well, I'll believe that as well then. I'll kind of stick the poster of the John 3:16 poster on my wall, and I'll sign the card, and I'll just carry on doing the same stuff as they're doing, and I'll go to heaven as well. That'd be great. Or they'll just look at you and think, what? You're telling me, and this is what I wanted to get to from these verses in 1 Peter. Part of the reason we don't walk away is because we don't realize how bad it was in the first place. And this verse just opens up a little bit more of how bad it was. You know what? I was trying to think through an illustration of this, but if something was bought with just like a couple of quid, it doesn't really matter a whole lot to you, does it? Like if something breaks that only cost you £2.50, do you really mind? If you bought something from Hyper Value, like you're going to buy your Christmas decorations at Hyper Value, that's what all students do, isn't it? And you're going to stick them up. If they break, do you really care? No. Now, if you bought them from Marks and Spencer's and they broke, well then, I don't know, maybe that would be a bit more of you care a bit more. The more expensive the item is, the more serious we take it, isn't it? Do you know what? Jesus bought you from your sin. He bought you from that past lifestyle with his blood, with everything that he had. He poured it all out for you for the reason that he wanted to save you from what you used to do. He wanted to save me from the drunkenness and from the swearing and from the lying and from the anger and from the whatever else was in my heart that I don't even know about and don't want to know about. He died and he gave his blood to save me from that so that I could live holy. And we don't get that and we don't take it on board. That's how serious it is. It's not just it doesn't really matter that much, I'll just go out and do a few bits and I'll be forgiven, that's fine. It matters a lot. It matters more than we can really understand. And for us as Christians, trying to give this message of hope, of salvation from sin that we're still living in, it ain't going to work. And whether your housemates and your coursemates will be this perceptive, but they could be, and they'll look at you and just say, what a hypocrite. Well, they're telling us to be safe from this stuff, and they're still doing it. There is freedom. You can walk away. And I don't know what that starts with for you. Maybe there's nothing there, that's great. If there's nothing there, then don't get guilty over something that isn't there. But if there is stuff, and again, this isn't hopelessness. This isn't just pressing down on people and trying to make you feel bad. It's trying to point you to the one who can set you free. Trying to point you to the one who's going to enable you to walk away. Really, he's already done the work. But sometimes there's a struggle. Sometimes there's a fight. And sometimes we're trying to walk away and it doesn't seem to be happening right away. You know what? My advice to you is get on your knees before him and say, Jesus, you bought me from this and you don't want me to be doing it. Help me. Do what's necessary. And you've got to be willing to do what's necessary as well. And sometimes that means cutting certain relationships. Sometimes that means cutting ties with certain things and certain places and certain whatever it is. Even, you go as radical as you need to go. You know what? If the internet's a problem, get rid of it. Don't have it. And you may think, I can't do that. I need it for university. What? To get free from sin, to live holy is far more important than anything else. So go that extra mile. Go as far as you need to do to get that out. And again, I'm not guaranteeing that your evangelism will just explode and everyone will start getting saved. You know what? Even without evangelism, this is really important for Christians. The reason it gives in 1 Peter is that God is going to, without partiality, judge everyone according to your work. Even as Christians, that's true. We're going to stand before him and the books are going to be opened, and what you've done with your life is going to be out there and it's going to be read for everyone to see. I don't know exactly how that's going to work, but I don't want stuff that ought not to be there to be in my life. Like I say, it isn't going to mean everyone's going to get saved. And you know what? There's quite some interesting verses in Philippians where Paul even is rejoicing that people are preaching the gospel who have these wrong motives, and they're doing it for their own gain. Sometimes evangelism is going to work from people who are just not doing the right thing. That's God's grace. Ultimately, they won't get any reward for that because they were doing it for themselves rather than to see people saved, rather than out of love both for God and for the people that you're speaking to. First two things that we need as Christians: to speak, open our mouths, and to live it out, and to be holy, and to run away from anything that's causing us to stumble, causing us to fall, causing us to sin. Be pure, be holy, and be what God has called you to be. Then your light will shine, and then people will notice the difference. Third thing, and again, I'm just going to bring this in with a little bit of testimony, but turn first off to Luke 22 and verse 54.